Had to have the Delta mentioned in the opening music. It's usually nice, but right now, maybe not so much. We actually have a question on the C Spire text line before we get started about the Delta, no less.
Waiting at the gate.
I'm telling you, it's Mississippi Outdoors Radio. In studio with us, as always, wildlife biologist Adam Butler. We have from the Law Enforcement Bureau, Major Chris Reed. And in the middle, in the hot seat today, from the Fisheries Bureau, the director of the Fisheries Bureau, Larry Pugh. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Real good.
Fantastic. Now, you know, the story of the last week has been flooding and closures up in the Delta area.
Right.
We had someone that texted in, Randy up in the Delta, said, can you find out if deer season in the Delta zone has been extended, and if so, to what date? Thank you.
Well, that question, I think, would deserve a follow-up question to kind of pry some more information out of, you know, one, where he's located, and two, is he referring to, you know, an extension due to the closure caused by flooding? And if that's the question, then no, we won't extend a season because it's been closed by floodwaters. And dependent on where he's located in the Delta, he may not be closed to floodwater anyway, but he can find that out on our website. We have a map posted of the closed areas. We were projecting, well, we weren't, but the Weather Service was projecting the river to, you know, we threw those projections on the press release the other day. The only area that does not look like it will meet the water levels which require closure is the Memphis, Mississippi River gauge and those lands that correspond with that river gauge. And again, all that stuff, and we'll talk about it, kind of run it down, but is on our website where you can look and kind of put your finger on your place in reference to the map there.
But it sounds like the rule of thumb answer is no, there will be no extensions.
Right. Unfortunately, if it closes due to floodwater along the Mississippi River or the backwater, we won't say if it's closed for 2 weeks, give you 2 weeks on the backside. That is just unfortunate. 3 out of the last 4 years, we've had to close deer season early January due to flooding, and that is completely out of our control.
Yeah, and I know we've had a lot of calls at the office this morning about this. A lot of hunters are rightly curious about what the situation is. But in terms of extension, I've heard said before that maybe way distant past that there was a precedent for that. You know, back we went back 40 years or so, if we had closures to extend. But that's not something we've done recently, and not something we would look to do this year. So
now, of course, the closures, like I said, that's been the big story. And do you have a little more detail? The Major was talking about it, about where these closures are.
Right. You can go to our website right now on mdwfp.com. On the home page, the scrolling marquee, there's a big map. You can click on that and look at that. And the different zones up and down the river, basically from the southern Warren County line, from the Warren-Claiborne line, pretty much all the way north, right along the river, basically lands to the west of Highway 1 and in places Highway 61, because it's going to differ where you're at. All of that's the area that we're talking about. And then the South Delta in and around Delta National Forest. So that's the areas in play, and each one of those zones has a different automatic closure based on river stage level. So I want the listeners to realize this is not something that there's someone sitting around a table in an office debating, well, should we close zone 2 or should we not close zone 2, and having a discussion. This stuff is already in law. It's in statute where it lists exactly what the river stage will be and what zone will close when that river stage is reached. So if you're interested in seeing all that, like I said, it's up on the homepage on the main screen. You can go and click that and see for each zone what the river stage and gauge would determine a closure in each area. And like Chris said, right now it's pretty much all of those in play north of that southern Warren County line all the way up to I guess basically almost the Tunica County line. That very north zone is not, but the rest of them have reached the flood stage.
From Highway 49 south along 61 Highway, and then, like I said, you can follow that map. But we also had to close a South Delta, what is classified as the South Delta zone, which kind of runs up to along 14 Highway. It comes back down to number 3 Highway, with Yazoo City kind of being the northeast point, and that would encompass a bunch of management areas: Lake George, Delta National,
Sunflower,
Panther Swamp is closed.
Panther Swamp's in there. Yeah, we've gotten quite a few calls this morning about that, about those WMAs particularly, because I know those are really popular areas. A lot of people, travel from long ways to hunt those places, and so folks are interested in that. But all of those are included in the closure. And
to clarify, when we say they're closed to all hunting except waterfowl. And so you can waterfowl hunt, you can pursue ducks. You're going to need to do it by boat because, like at Panther and Delta National, for instance, they were closing the gates along the roads last week, and so you're not able to get a vehicle in there. And if you want to hunt it, you can get there, but you're going to have to access it through the Sunflower Canal or the little rivers that run through there. If you can get in that way and access it by boat. Same thing with all the management areas, Lake George, all that stuff down there.
So basically from Vicksburg to Tunica, roughly.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Unfortunate. The river, hopefully, we'll get in another pattern where it'll dry up a little bit, or the rain will dry up a little bit, and it'll allow the river to fall, get the gates back open, and hopefully it will not be another repeat of last year, because the people over there just can't afford to go through that again.
Yeah, well, and I was looking at, before we came over this morning, I was looking at the projections for not all of these zones, but I looked at several different ones, and it's not a given that you're not going to get to deer hunt again. There were several of them that were projecting to maybe fall back out below the stage at maybe the 28th, 29th, so you may still have a couple of days right there at the tail end.
Just got to monitor it.
Yeah, just have to watch it. I'm not saying that for sure. Don't put that in stone that it's gone, but looking at the projections, it may still be a day or two in there at the end.
The silver lining in all this is we will have some fish restocked in all the oxbow lakes, I guess. Right, Pew?
That's right.
Well, and it seems
throw him a bone out there, man. He looked eager to talk.
He's just sitting there so patient, He
is so patient. He is a man of many hats.
Well, and to me, the other bonus to this is, the deer hunters in the Delta regions where these closures are happening are going, oh, man, and the duck hunters are going, time to burn some days off.
Boy, you can see some boats getting pulled behind trucks right now.
Right.
For sure.
The only problem, with it is with this much water, it makes the waterfowl hunting a little bit tougher because it's hard to predict where they're going to be. They've got more. The duck hunters have more options, but the ducks have more options too. So it makes it
lots of habitat.
Lots of habitat. We're going to hear a little bit about ducks here in a minute. I think we're going to get Houston to call in a little report from the field.
Oh wow, we've got field reporters now.
Field report.
Well, we're trying to branch out.
We are moving up in the world. I'm telling you.
I'm going to do that in the spring.
We got to figure out how we can become field reporters, Butler.
It'd be a good day to be in the field. Cold. I mean, if you're a hunter, this is the day you want to be in the field.
That's it. You don't want to be fishing all day like this.
And some people have the day off from work too. So
About the only thing that bite all day like this are codfish.
Well, you know what though? If you hadn't caught anything in a while, you'll take a cod.
Happy.
Yeah, you'll reel that sucker in.
You'll get anything.
You'll post a picture on Facebook holding it. Look at this.
Cold water fish.
That's it.
Caught a thing. Now, it's not all deer and ducks. We've got some other things going on, including the youth squirrel hunt is coming up.
Yeah, that's right. This is we've talked about it last couple of weeks, but the sign up is drawing close. This is an event that we've been putting on for several years now. I don't know. I'm going to say this is 6th or 8th year running probably, and it's really aimed at youth who have an interest in hunting but may not come from a traditional hunting family, so don't necessarily have a father or an uncle or a grandfather that's taken them. So if they're interested in learning, this is a great place to start. So it'll be a whole day structured around trying to learn kind of introductory to small game hunting and have some dog handlers with some squirrel dogs and kind of do that at the end, and probably have a little squirrel cooking there.
You get to hunt.
They do get to hunt, and they're hunting on public hunting area, so it's a place that you can go back to, or if you decide this is something you like to do. And like I said, they usually have a little squirrel cooking at the end and kind of do that all up. The sign up ends this Wednesday though, so if you're interested or know a kid that would be a great pick for this, go ahead and try to get registered on the website. Also, turkey draw hunts are open. They'll be open through February the 15th. So if you want to hunt one of our WMAs early in the turkey season, go ahead and get registered for that.
Well, we've got to take a break, and when we come back, apparently one of our field reporters will be checking in here on Mississippi Outdoors Radio. And joining us on the phone, probably the hardest working man out of the entire group. He is breaking a sweat right now, and we got to check in with him. We have on the phone with us our field reporter, Houston Havens. Houston, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's great to be recognized so distinguished.
Well, when you're putting in this kind of effort, man, on a Monday no less, we got to tip a hat to you, you know? So how are things going for you out there?
It's going well. Today and the past couple of days, we've seen things kind of flip around, basically to get the type of weather the waterfowl hunters have been looking for in Mississippi for several weeks now, and things are starting to shape up a little bit better.
Now, when you say that things are looking up, is this kind of a semi-permanent change for the rest of the season, or are we going to have some more ups and downs, you think?
We definitely like to see several days of north winds and below freezing temperatures for our overnight lows. So we definitely look for those kind of conditions to be several days in a row before we really start to get our hopes up for migrations. But it looks like we're going to have those. We had below freezing temperatures last night, and the next couple of nights look pretty good as well. Still got those north winds, and today is what I would call a migration day with bluebird skies, a good north wind, some sun. We're hoping that the birds are on the move right now. We also heard some good reports from the field, actually starting last Friday, so a little bit ahead of this cooler weather. People were seeming to be doing better in the field, having a little bit better results with their duck hunts.
I think the better question is, how are you doing with it?
Well, we were out today doing a mentor hunt with Delta Waterfowl at Mississippi State University on some public land, and got some students out who were not very experienced, or some had no experience with waterfowl hunting. So it was a good morning to get them out and kind of show what duck hunting was about. At least we had some seasonable weather, and we had some opportunities. Saw plenty of birds, so it was a good morning for sure.
I guess here's the question, and Adam, Chris, Larry, even how does Houston work it out where his job is to go hunting on Monday morning and you guys are sitting here with me?
That's a good question.
I was just curious how this works out.
You didn't have to point it out.
If we knew the answer to that, we would probably not. We'd probably call in too.
You'd be on the spot field reporters. Yeah.
Houston, did you didn't have any unfortunate incidents with people falling in or any of that stuff today, walking around in waders for the first time, did you?
And nothing too unfortunate. There was high potential for that,
yeah.
You well know, with the cold temperatures. We didn't have any ice this morning, but it was right to be not having any fun once you got wet this morning. So we were pretty careful, and things worked out pretty well.
So will we do? I know we just put out the last waterfowl report, the aerial survey. Are we planning to do another one before the season wraps up?
Yes, we had a little bit of weather delays with our early January flights, but we did get those wrapped up, and that report is available online now. And we will actually be getting back up in the air tomorrow, and the goal will be to get our last report out before this final weekend of the waterfowl season coming up.
Now, the question is, you just had that report out. You're about to go up again. Do you expect things to look better with these flights tomorrow, or about the same?
We always hope so. History has shown us in Mississippi that we more times than not we're going to hit our peak numbers of waterfowl in the Mississippi Delta during that late January survey period. So we're definitely hoping that's going to be the case again. With weather the way it is right now, things are promising, at least for the potential to keep receiving more birds into the state. One of the things you guys touched on a little bit earlier before I got on was how much habitat is out there. So, the world is available right now, basically, is how we say it, with, the backwater flooding, everybody who had the capabilities to catch rainfall and chose to do so pretty much has flooded habitat available on the landscape. So it's good for ducks. It makes things a little bit more challenging sometimes when ducks have so many options. And it's late season on top of that. Ducks can be a little more wary this time of year. So people definitely have to choose their spots wisely and kind of stay mobile to be able to capitalize on those opportunities.
Hey, Houston, this is Larry. I got a question. I always get put on the spot when we're talking about fishing all over the state. So if you were going to go hunting this week, let's just say you're going hunting in the morning, you're hunting public land, where would you go?
Ooh, in the morning on public land. If I had the right, well, first of all, you would have to have a pretty good knowledge of the area going in. But some of those opportunities you guys talked about where, it's closed to everything but waterfowl, but those floodwaters in the woods this time of year is usually a good time to capitalize on mallards that are using that kind of habitat, that forested habitat, like on a panther swamp or a sunflower WMA, Mahana or Philbright WMA.
You would need a boat.
Ducks are definitely shifting towards that kind of habitat, and even with second night of below freezing temperatures, that moving water is not going to freeze. So that may be, if some of these shallow ag fields with the still water start to freeze up later this week, those may be even better areas to go to in those forested moving waters.
So everybody chases the mallard duck, and the numbers are saying that our percentages are, a little off from what they should be this time of year. Have you spoken with any of your counterparts in, say Missouri or Illinois up there, and are they holding birds? Are the birds leaving? Have they turned on the get out of town, siren for the ducks to come south?
Well, we have talked with some of those other states. Usually the states we pay the most attention to are Louisiana and Arkansas, just because of how closely they are to us and how their migrations tend to kind of mimic ours. And Arkansas in particular, their last report showed that they were a little below average as well. So it's in my mind, it's a little bit of a repeat of last year as far as weather and habitat availability goes, up and down, not just in Mississippi, but up and down the Mississippi River and the Mississippi Flyway in general. But maybe not quite to the extreme that it was last year. So, here in Mississippi, we've definitely outdone our numbers from last year so far this time of year. But like you said, we are still a little below average, and hoping that we pick up towards average a little more this time, or maybe even surpass that here as we're getting ready to close out the season.
Well, Houston, I hate that we interrupted your wonderful Monday with work, but we had to do it. We had to get this information out there. And in all seriousness, we're having fun with you, but yeah, you're out there working hard just like everybody else. And I know, stop rolling your eyes at me. You ought to see the expressions I'm getting in the studio, Houston. But keep on doing the good work out there, and just don't mind all the jealous people that didn't get to go hunting this morning.
Will do. We appreciate it.
It's Houston Havens, our on-the-spot field reporter with Mississippi Outdoors Radio. And it's a good time right now for duck hunters.
It's the best time. It's always, as he said, better late for us, and this year we get to go all the way to the 31st of January for the first time ever, I guess, and so the best is yet to come.
And especially with the cold weather, because traditionally, for the past probably 5 to 10 years, we've gotten our coldest weather the last half of January.
Yeah.
In Mississippi. That's just been the way it has been for quite a few years now. And as long as that trend continues, I suspect we'll see that same result with the duck population every year.
Yeah. I remember last year, same thing happened. We were fairly mild and then had a big cold snap about the second week of January. So
that makes perfect sense to me. Now, you guys, Larry, we are going to let you talk.
No, I enjoy talking deer and duck hunting. Let's just keep going.
Okay, well, we're going to get to that. I do have a couple of things just very quickly here that I want to get to. Randy in the Delta that had asked the question about the extension earlier was not able to be listening during the segment that we talked about it. So just to reiterate, no extensions in the Delta for deer season due to the closures.
That's correct. Yes,
Correct.
That's just the way it's
But
going to
tell
be.
Randy keep his fingers crossed, because looking at the projections, those closures may open back up with a couple of days left late next week, we hope.
Wayne and Brandon, in regards to the youth squirrel hunt, will my child need to bring a gun for the youth hunt?
All of that no, everything will be provided.
Just got to bring the child.
Just show up with the kid.
Need to have the child.
Probably a good idea to have some shoes that can get muddy, but other than that, nothing else needed.
I would suggest not wearing $200 loafers.
Yeah, touche.
Yeah. Probably a good move. What's the river stage in Natchez for deer season closure? I don't know if you know that.
That's
off the top
not
of your head.
listed in the law. We kind of amended, and the situation is always fluid. And so a couple of years ago, they're probably remembering that we did actually have to close deer season down there just to the sheer volume of what the river stage was at, and it was crazy high. And we just, listened to the people on the ground down there, but it is not listed in statute.
Guys, got a question on the C Spire text line from Madison County. Says, baiting hogs in trap pen, does the bait have to be in a feeder or can it be on the ground?
I'm assuming he's referring to Madison County. When you're trapping hogs, you can put the feed on the ground. It doesn't have to be in a feeder within the trap. And the reason I asked that, if he's inside a CWD management zone, he would have to apply for a permit before he can trap those hogs.
So, as is just about always the case, it's not a simple answer. It depends on where you're at.
Yeah, these text questions, or people that text it in, it's never. There's so many variables that could be lying underneath the initial question that we just can't really flesh out through a text. But with what we have, he can go at it in Madison County.
And of course, if they have any other questions, they can
always call
us.
us. Absolutely, They always call us.
And they will get right to it. Now, Larry, it's your moment to shine. Larry Pugh. And, the first thing I see is, we have some state lakes that are closed, and one of them I have some personal experience with from years ago. That's Lake Mary Crawford.
Well, what I did is I just, took a couple of 3 lakes that we've got closed and wanted to provide a brief update, because we get a lot of questions on social media. Had a phone call this morning about Lake Mary Crawford. And a lot of information being out there right now in the news with all the rain, with dams and dam safety and water levels. And so, real quickly, Lake Mary Crawford, we're pretty excited. We've done a lot of work, but still looking at year and a half, probably May, June 2021 before we reopen it. A lot of people think that's two and a half years is too long, but we stock these fish as fingerlings, and we've got to give the fish population some time to get established. We want them to spawn at least one time, if not twice, before we open it up to fishing.
So the work has been completed. Now it's just a matter of letting the fish grow and let that population get reestablished.
Yeah, our staff has done some upgrades on the campgrounds. Brand new boat ramp. We widened it. We're going to redeck all our fishing piers. I think the folks down there are going to be pretty happy with what we've done once it reopens. And the reason why I said I had some personal experience, my grandfather and my father and I used to go to Lake Mary Crawford all the time to go fishing. Mm-hmm. Been there many a times, and it seems like if somebody sneezes too hard, the level's going to rise and it's going to be flooded down there. It's what it always seemed like to me anyway. And it's a good time for us to inspect the valve, do any repairs to the gate, the stem, make sure the valve's functioning. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of our state lakes were built in the 60s and 70s, and these structures have a lifespan. So it's always good for us to get in there, put some eyes, put some hands on these structures to make sure they're functioning as they should.
Now, you've got a couple of other lakes that you were going to talk about as well.
Well, a big shout-out to my folks up in northeast Mississippi that are listening. Trace State Park's been closed to fishing for about 4 years now. It's been a challenge. We've had some issues with the dam, back and forth funding, and finally we are completely finished with the rehab and the repairs at Trace State Park. And with all the rain we've had, the lake's quickly refilling, and it is a popular topic on social media. I try not to read all the posts because they're not all positive, but I'm excited to say the lake's refilling. We've stocked our bluegill and red ear. We stocked channel catfish last week, and are going to be looking at stocking largemouth bass in the spring. And everybody wants to know when it's going to reopen. I can't give you an exact date, but given that we still have adults out there, we hope to look at reopening in 2020. And just like I mentioned with Mary Crawford, we've done an awful lot of work out there with redecking the piers, inspected the ramp. We took the opportunity to try to make a lot of improvements since it's been closed so long.
Now, also Simpson County.
Well, that's one that's been in the news here lately. It's a high hazard dam, and because of that, we've got to make some repairs and basically redo the dam. In the event of a failure, Highway 49 would be no more. So there's criteria that we have to keep our standards. We have to keep that dam up, and so we're having to redo the emergency spillway and make some modifications to the dam. So that lake, I expect it to close probably for good in the next 2 weeks. And again, we'll be looking at a 2-year period that lake will be closed right there off of 49. But we will, again, take that opportunity to do some much-needed improvements that we've already identified. So, yes, it's down, but you've got a lot anglers have a lot of other opportunities out there to go fishing in addition to that state lake.
Speaking of improvements, new ramp in at Horseshoe.
Well, a lot of people aren't familiar with this, and anytime we're able to gain public access to waters that were not open to the angling public, I like to talk about it. And we were able to work out a deal where we were able to lease some land from a foundation at Horseshoe Lake in Holmes County. And it's a 750-acre oxbow that's about 5 miles northwest of Chula. And supposedly has some tremendous crappie and bass fishing. Our staff will start evaluating that fish population probably in another 6 weeks, if not sooner. And right now the ramp's open. Hey, the folks can get out there and fish if they choose. But certainly as spring gets closer and anglers start thinking about fishing, that's one I would have on my list if there was a place I was going to go.
You had me at crappie. You could have just stopped talking there. Those things are addictive once you start catching them and frying them.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We've got some tremendous crappie fishing opportunities all over the state. And I told my oldest daughter day before yesterday that crappie's probably my favorite fish, without a doubt, to eat. And she was able to try some, and she quickly agreed that, hey, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. She said tasty, I believe is what she said.
Yes.
So they're wonderful fish to eat.
She sounds like a wise person to me. She really does. Now, some of the other fishing, what kind of news do we have?
Well,
right now?
we put out a press release last week about rainbow trout, and again, I can't stay off social media, and I start looking at the comments, and they're entertaining about why. And why aren't y'all doing it everywhere else? And it's a pretty unique situation up at Lake Lamar Bruce, which is outside of Saltillo and Tupelo area. And we've got a small 3-acre pond on state lake property that certainly we can control access. And with the stocking of rainbow trout in such a small pond, it gives anglers obviously an improved chance to catch them. Our hatcheries do not produce these fish. We were fortunate several years ago to develop a partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They provide these fish if they have leftovers. So shout out to Private John Allen National Fish Hatchery there in Tupelo for coordinating it and going and picking those rainbow trout up. So if you're looking for a unique opportunity during the winter, you can go up to Lake Lamar Bruce and catch some rainbow trout. These fish will not survive probably past mid-March. Once the water temp warms up, they're not going to do well. And so it's really a what we call a winter put-and-take fishery, just trying to provide something a little different out there.
Just another opportunity,
Yep.
basically. Now, one thing that has been a topic for quite a while, and let's just get an update on it, the Salvinia out at Ross Barnett.
It has been a hot topic. It was a hot topic back in the fall. Our staff worked diligently out there. Obviously, we tried to get the reservoir down to treat these new areas, but with the rain and all the flooding, we were not able to get the reservoir down. I will just tell the listeners on that Barnett area that we're going to be doing our due diligence to stay out there and keep on top of that situation.
We have a text on the C Spire text line, Argo and Blue Springs. How long do you think it will take Trace Lake before fishing, and I'm reading here, will get back like it was back in the day?
I don't have a good answer. I can just tell you that while it was down this entire time, we did have adults, an adult population that survived and is going to flourish as this lake expands and all this terrestrial vegetation is going to be inundated. The fishing, I think, once it opens, it will be phenomenal. We've just seen it too many times at other lakes when we've reopened it. But they'll certainly be vulnerable because they're dumb. They haven't seen a lure in 4 years, so we want to protect the resource. So we'll be looking at what regulations we'll need to put in place.
Now, the fishing license survey, is that completed?
No, we did. Well, it was for 2019, and we'll be doing it again in 2020 in partnership with our Law Enforcement Bureau, where we actually have an opportunity to interview anglers, ask you what kind of license you have, where you're from. And from 2019, we interviewed almost 17,000 anglers all over the state.
Wow.
And got some really cool stuff. We know 61% of those were residents. 10% were non-residents, but more importantly, 26% were exempt. We've never been able to quantify that number before. And what I mean by exempt, either you're under 16, you're over 60 or 65 and over, you're on disability, but that's a pretty high number. So we'll follow that up. We can look at specific waters, what states they came from, anglers came from. For example, Grenada is a nationally known crappie fishery. From our survey, we found out that 17 different states visited Grenada Lake in 2019. And
17 different states.
I'm talking, for example, California, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Those folks have come into Mississippi to crappie fish.
Wow.
Do you think that's not helping the economy up in that part of the world?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think we don't give enough consideration is what kind of economic impact our outdoors has on the state and on specific regions. And that's a great example of it, right? The 17 different states.
And came a long ways.
Yeah.
And so we're going to follow that up with law enforcement and our officers and our biologists.
And so he's calculating what does like a fisherman contribute generally, or the fisher, I guess, people that fish here
like
generate?
An individual trip or economic.
Yeah, you've done the numbers, like how it benefits the economy, or it's rough.
I can't even recall. I know that an average trip, if you look at direct expenditures, anglers are going to spend about $70 per trip.
Yeah.
That's gas, bait, snacks, food.
Gas.
So you start throwing some multipliers out there that I'm not familiar with, and it's big business.
Yeah, and especially if it reaches the point, especially from those 17 states, they're not driving here fishing for an hour and then driving straight back. They're staying here.
Yeah.
There's hotel rooms, there's more gas, there's food, there's eating out, there's camping, there's other things. So it has a pretty sizable impact, I think. Now, speaking about the young ones, the youth fishing rodeos.
Well, and this is just a prelude or of what we'll be talking about more and more each week as we move into quote fishing season. And I just want folks to be on the lookout. We talked about squirrel camp, but if you've got kids that you want to introduce them to fishing, you want to get them out there and have an opportunity to go fishing in a controlled environment where that opportunity to catch one is greatly enhanced. We do about 50 to 55 youth fishing events all year long, and we'll soon have that posted on our website. They'll start up in March, so you still got time. So we'll be talking about that more and more each week on Mississippi Outdoors Radio.
Adam, very quickly, Mississippi Outdoors, you got some good stuff on TV, don't
Yeah,
you?
you got this week we're going to have a new episode, 2 segments that I think audience will really like. The first one's going to be a rabbit hunt in Yazoo County, so it'll be pretty fast-paced. You don't want to miss that. And then the second segment, our very own Larry Pugh will be taking a canoe trip down the Bear Creek at Tishomingo State Park doing a little fishing, and he's told us that that's going to be a primo episode. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be real pretty float down that beautiful creek catching a few fish.
We did. It was late fall, and everything was in full color. It was a great trip, and I would encourage the listeners to watch it and plan a trip up there because it was a fun trip. fishing.
I've never done that float, but I have always heard a lot about Bear Creek. That
Yep.
It's one of the best canoeing creeks in the state.
And that comes up Thursday nights, right?
That's right.
7:30?
Thursdays at 7:30 on MPB, and then re-aired at 5:30. And then Chip and the gang are always good about getting that on the YouTube and Facebook and that sort of thing quickly thereafter.
Fantastic. Mississippi Outdoors Radio, we are done for another week. Adam Butler, Major Chris Reed, Larry Pugh, and, of course, Houston Havens, the on-the-spot field reporter, doing a great job as always. That'll do it for the JT Show. Just final word from Virginia. There's been no violence yet at the gun rally. Alex Jones is still there in his tank, though, so take that for what you will. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.